is Vincent. I've been a friend of the family since 1973. And I first met Manya through his wife, Gladys, because I work with Gladys. And she was working at a place called Mass Mental Health Center for a doctor named Dr. Shieldkraut. And they somehow clicked with us, my wife and I. And we would go to parties, and we would go to New Year's events. And the best thing about those things were, well, Richard Garrett, who was sitting there, was a professor of philosophy, and at the time he was just out of prison, teaching prisoners philosophy, I think. And we would get into these intense discussions about philosophy, and the three of us had a lot to say, and we said it often. And those parties would sometimes last till 3 or 4 in the morning. And we never got tired of batting the philosophical ball around the net. And it was a special time for us, and I'll never forget that. And through the years, we just got closer and closer because of those events. And I want to thank Cynthia and Richard over there for hosting those New Year's Eve parties, and Manya and Gladys for having untold numbers of parties with great Indian food. And I think we've known them through, I think, 4 different house moves. And it's been quite a ride. And now we can celebrate something that was a unique event, and a unique series of events that really helped shape friendships and your philosophy, and trying to make yourself more open-minded by hearing a lot of other opinions. So I want to thank him for that. He was very good at it. The only thing I really would be curious about is why he left being a professor in India to go all the way to England and then to Greece. And I wish somebody would give a synopsis of why that happened and what motivated Manya to do that. Thank you.
I had wondered that myself, Vince. So on the Friday before he passed away, I spent the day having lunch with him, and I asked him that very question. And we were also discussing it last night, and there are multiple answers to that question. But the one that he chose to tell me a couple days before he died was that he'd done it for his daughters, wanting to give them a better opportunity in America than he thought that they would have as young women in India. And he also thought that they would have a better opportunity in America than in England or anywhere else in Europe where he felt there was more racism towards Indians. That was what he told me, at least. That was interesting. But he didn't talk very much about the past to me. Though his last words to me and my girlfriend Melissa, who spent his second to last day on earth with him, were "forget the past." And it was said in the context of some difficult family issues we're going through. But since they were his last words, they've sat with me as being much broader than that. Or I want to take them to be much broader than that. And I think that I know very little about my grandfather's past because he wouldn't talk about it very much. He left India. He didn't teach his daughters or his grandsons any Indian language. He didn't carry on many Indian traditions other than the cooking that he did and the idea of broad family. But I think he really wanted to make a new life for himself and for his family and bring his family to a new country, a new continent, new continents, and new traditions and new ideas. And that's something that I very much respect about him. On the last day I spent with him, I wanted to show him pictures of the new house that my girlfriend and I just bought. And I was showing him my iPhone, and he just grabbed the iPhone, and his fingers weren't working, but he was swiping and pinching and zooming on the little screen. And I realized I'm a filmmaker, and he bought a video camera when they were new technology and would let me use it, and that really enabled me to work in a new art form that was coming up, video. So I think he was a very forward-thinking man and not particularly interested in the past, and that really inspires me. I've got a poem to read. The past. All that is past now. All that's done, forgotten. All that's undone, never. All of life's great efforts, the great effort of breath, the trials of school, work, marriage, the joys of it. The limitation of freedom the body provides, how it cannot fly off the ground that bears it, how the water flows around, then finds holes to permeate and sink it. The term limits the body sets for itself, the spinning towards the center of reducing telomere, the inescapable aging performed on the way to renewal, the impossibilities we put in the way of love, the daily closings of our sense as we wake and openings again as we sleep, the slight injustices that cow our hearts and fill our bellies, things we think about ourselves and things others think, and the profound lack of distance between them, spring and fall. The anchors we drop off our bodies, our baggage that weighs and replenishes us, the clots around our heart, which reduce and also mediate its flow, the sound of that flow, the feeling of it, when you breathe in, out, when you cleave the whole flesh and in that moment conceive. The great dark outside of all din that invites your little light to be subsumed by it, calls you out. The sea that then pulls you under. All the dreams you sleeping invoke and in waking forget. The purpose at hand and yet not able to be grasped. Like a butterfly, it's broken if known. It may land on you. It may land on you yet. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Ravi Navar. I'm a grandnephew of Mania's. My grandmom and his mom were cousins. And each one of us today has both a sense of loss and yet something that kind of stays with us in a sense of celebration. It's a very strange feeling for us today because on the one hand, we really feel like we lost something.
Yeah.
On the other hand, we feel like we gained a whole lot from a personality, an individual who was well ahead of his times, was bold, fearless, a thinker for sure, and open-minded. So,
Like your father, Ravi.
thank you. So thank you, Jojo. So he was a big hero to my dad. There was about 11 years between them. And, speaking of, I was reflecting on the comment that the student from IIT made about him looking like a swashbuckler and a sort of a hero from a melodramatic, mythological Indian movie. That was his larger-than-life personality, even as a child. So from what my father describes him at, my father literally used to hero worship the man because he was a little bit of a ruffian, believe it or not, but he was young. And he used to explain it as he belonged to a warrior priest clan, which is very unusual in the Indian because the way they've sort of divided things up, oftentimes priests and warriors are two different classes of people. But in the southwestern part of India, where we come from, they're actually one and the same because they didn't have enough people, believe it or not, to fill both roles. And so, as you know, the priests were the intellectuals of society, and the warriors were fierce. And in this case, they kind of came together. So I've always thought of Manya as a warrior priest. And so he was an athlete. He was also a gymnast. He was a painter. He was a philosopher. And he touched each one of us in a very unique and a very individual kind of way. I can't possibly describe everything I'm feeling, and I know that none of us can possibly articulate everything, nor do we want to. However, I think we share something in common today. And I think that is a feeling of belonging to the kind of person that he was and what he stood for. And I think he stood for a lot of the big true values that we all cherish. So I only have fond memories, and the man was so good at whatever he took up that he left a mark. I think we'll all acknowledge that today. And that's his celebration, is whatever he took up, he excelled at, because he was passionate about it, and he was upright, honest, forthright, and stood for it. But at the same time, he was open-minded, flexible, and really, truly understanding. I think a lot of times the people that cite instances today, that's come out. So let's celebrate what he stood for. Given what we just heard, let's not mourn the body, let's celebrate the soul. Thank you.
I'm Richard Garrett, and when I learned of Manya's passing, really cried. Couldn't but not cry, because it's a loss from a personal point of view. But it's true. He lives on. I'm a philosopher by training, but Manya taught me philosophy. We had so many wonderful sessions. I've known him for 45 years. And I remember he would say, Richard, Richard, Richard. To bring me back to, it's true that he didn't dwell on the past. He knew the past. He benefited from the past, but he didn't dwell on it. He was very much in the now. That's what's real, is now, as far as this life goes. And what did he teach me? Oh my goodness. Through him, I, a philosopher, learned philosophy. Through him, I sharpened my ability to perceive and see and take the blinders off. We would be up, believe it or not, till 3 and 4 in the morning.
We believe it.
I guess I look at it right. But seriously, because our discussions are so animated. Animated? I don't think animated. That they would just go on and they go on and go on. And I guess, Margaret, you weren't even born when I first met Manya. I met him at a party. good friend of his. And once we connected, that was it. We connected. And we just made all possible for us to get together. Because he was so enriching my life and my person. And, he was a teacher, an example, flesh and blood, very real. That part will live on me, live within me, and endure within me, and continue to enrich me forever. Is there one story I can mention? Well, I know my daughter Elizabeth remembers, and my daughter Margaret remembered, because we used to take them with us when we would go to Manya's. And they were just little girls, even that young. And we would put them to bed with the idea that they would sleep, and then maybe I should leave this for you to say, Elizabeth, the story you just told me about me holding you. And I hope you will get up and tell everybody about that. That was beautiful. But he was family. He was family to me. What is family? Family is wherever there's love that exists. Bonds of love and respect and appreciation. So I am indebted to this man for the rest of my life. Thank you.
I'm a shorter person. Okay, I think this is fine. Yeah. Okay, I'm Neela Dandekar, and I am Manya's hometown girl. And we met at a party, and when he realized that I'm from Ratnagiri, suddenly there was this bond between two of us. And Gladys and I also became very good friends. And I don't know anybody from my hometown but Manya. So I feel that loss quite a bit. And whenever I feel about him and the whole family, I feel like sometimes you have friends and friends. But in the friendship, there are sometimes hot and cold feeling in friendships with their family, Rege's family and Manya. It was always hot friendship, never became cold, because they are such decent people that always they brought happiness to us, and I hope, it was mutual. And whenever I see about Manya and Gladys, and I think they had very unique qualities, intellectual people, at the same time very decent human beings, and warmth and friendship, everything combination together, like he said, you find rarely. And I have not seen his fierce side any time because I saw only his softer side, And he was so many full of talents and everything. And even though they left Newton, and we used to live in the same town, but luckily my daughter lives in Amherst. When they moved to Amherst, we kept on seeing them whenever we will see the daughter, and we will casually drop in. So the friendship was there, but also visiting and everything continued. So when you visit more often, you feel more loss. And that's what we are feeling. And I feel also very close to Jo, because I have talked to her like as if she is my own friend, which rarely happens, that your friend's daughter you talk so often. So what he has, the nature he also has, I see, developed that in his children, and warmth for human beings and making people comfortable. And that's what all is about, because the money comes and goes, the